thought-provoking, motivational, inspirational. That's right. That's just TMI with your hosts, Dee Dee and Sir Dre. Let's hear what they have to say.
Episode number 2.
Ooh, yes. My head hurts
I know.
from all the laughing.
You know what? Because it's shoulder or fling fling. Forward and backwards. I wish you guys could have heard the conversation before we went live. I asked her about this certain move where people literally almost throw their shoulder out. And I said, what's the name of it? And I thought she was going to respond in patois. I've never heard anything like that before. Shoulder or fling fling. So
I
anyways.
was code switching between speaking properly.
Yeah, but why did you
speaking
code
English
switch with me? I get it. My parents
and
are
speaking
Jamaican.
patois. It was a best.
Whatever. It is what it is. So anyways, welcome back to episode number 2. Dee Dee and Surdre is in the building. and
me, Miss G.
yeah,
Ooh,
Miss G. All
I
right.
like
Everyone else has a
it.
Wow,
nickname.
it's funny. We called you Shauna all the way up until the camera went on. Miss G.
She said, I want a name.
Yeah, Miss G.
And I'm choosing this one.
everyone include everyone. I want to be in. I want to be in.
The laugh.
So anyways, we want to welcome you back. We hope that you've had an opportunity
Yes.
to see episode number 1 because like it was a great episode, and now we're
was
back
impressed.
at it. We're in the building, and we're just so grateful to have you here.
Yes.
Today, what are we talking about, Dee Dee?
Well, a lot of people asked questions or sent me text messages asking, what's code switching? And I mean, other than Googling it, I know that a majority of us do it, so I wanted to touch on code switching, define it for you, even show you how it's done, because you may not realize that you're actually doing it. And then we're going to switch up a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about,
Whatever.
just
whatever.
come with us, follow us, go with us.
Yeah, we're just going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Now, code switching, you get to define it.
Well, code switching is the the switching. I hate when people use words
Yeah,
to define the word.
Doesn't matter.
Switching between two languages, or in our cases, mostly Caribbean people, dialects. So I'm switching between English and patois. So, for example, when Sir Dre said, "What's this dance?" I said, instead of saying shoulder for a fling, I said, "Throw the shoulder fling fling."
Yeah.
Right?
Which was even more confusing than what it is in
Because I
patois.
switched in and out of what I was actually
Yeah,
supposed
you
to say.
switched it so badly that you couldn't even remember what you were trying to tell me. So
I
switch
know.
back.
Fact.
Fact, right?
She actually couldn't say it twice.
Yeah, she couldn't say it twice.
But we understood, though.
Yeah, we understood.
understood.
Yes.
I think that's the thing about code switching is,
Yeah.
depending on who you're code switching with, they get it.
Yes.
So just in this very example, you got it.
Yeah,
you
I
knew
got
what
it.
she meant,
Yeah.
even though you're going to give her a hard time for
Yeah,
it.
sure.
But
You're
we
right.
understand the code switching.
Yeah.
Does everyone
And I did call
understand
her,
our code
and I called her
switching?
bluff.
No.
No, I don't think that a lot of people understand. You know what? It's not that people don't understand it. I think that it becomes or has become such a way of life that people go back and forth, and they don't realize that they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I think usually the people that identify it quickly are the ones who know how you talk when we're in the room.
That's true.
Absolutely
Yeah.
true. If I can give a story.
Yes.
So I taught in Korea for 6 years, and my first
Cool.
year in South Korea, I used to come back and I'd call my friend and I'd be like, "Hey guys, how are you doing?" And I remember one of my girlfriends would just like, "Stop talking to me like I'm stupid or something." And I was just like, "What do you mean?" And I didn't realize that I had to change how I spoke to small Korean students versus how I spoke to my friends. And it was just kind of this ongoing battle of turn it off. Like
Yeah.
when you're speaking to English language speaker, like you don't have to slow
Speak so
down.
slowly.
You can speak at regular pace. And it was always this like, what's going on in Toronto? And my friends used to get so mad.
Yeah.
Code switching.
Code
Yeah.
switching. But it doesn't just happen that way, because I think code switching happens all the time, but I find that it happens a lot more when black people enter a different space with different people.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me at work, where I work, I Tread softly,
Yeah, don't tell them
Deandra.
where you work, 'cause you might not have a job on
No,
Monday.
I
So-
would never.
Yeah, sure.
But where I work, I know I speak properly. I ensure that, I do my pauses. So, like, if they were dictating it, they'd put a comma or a period. I speak very properly. And then when I go around my friends or even family, that's when the pot was rolling.
Yeah,
You
and,
know?
and it's not that there's a switch that says go on and off,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a level of comfortability.
Yes.
That's it. And I think it's so comfortable that you don't even realize you're doing it. It happens organically.
Yeah.
It just flows with it.
Exactly.
I think, I think lots of people do it in all kinds of different situations, job, church, friends, even depending on the friends you're with.
Yeah.
You switch on and off depending on how comfortable you are.
Yeah. You mentioned something before we started about, how you talk to your students. She's an educator. So how she talks to her students versus how she speaks to, adults. She'll speak differently. That in and of itself could be code switching.
Absolutely. And I thought about it and I've been thinking about it a lot and how I talk to my students. Why do I change the way I speak to my students? Shouldn't they just know who I am? Shouldn't I be vulnerable and be open enough with them to just be who I am?
Yeah, but here's the thing, Shauna, if we're to be completely honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is when we go into the classroom, there's a certain measure of excellence that we all draw from. It's not necessarily that it's written down in stone, but what we say is, I'm now in a professional setting, and somehow my Caribbean background has to take a back seat to my professionalism.
You're right.
Because
but-
nobody says this. Look, nobody goes into the classroom and says, now that I'm in the classroom, I'm now going to speak using patois, if you're from Jamaica. I mean, there's different Caribbean vernaculars, different vernaculars around the world that black people use, but nobody goes into the room and says, now that I'm here like this, I'm going to speak like that. It never happens. And so we can see
That's
that
true.
some dialects have been elevated in a certain kind of way, and others have really been diminished.
That's
True.
true.
Yeah.
And you mentioned being vulnerable. You said being vulnerable. And as you said it, I'm thinking, so then my work people don't really know who I am because who I am is really who I am with my family and my friends, where I go in and out of this and the patois. But I have to be professional because if I go to work speaking the patois, no one's understanding me. I'm not getting anywhere.
Is there, I guess, and maybe we'll get to this, is there a balance? Because I think there's a place for everything. Is there a place where I can speak patois or in the Toronto context? Toronto has its own slang. I saw this video come up and you say ting, yo, my ting, or mansden.
Yeah, mansden.
Is
That's
there
what-
a
that's my
place
say. I love
for
mans.
a balance
You're home.
in our professional,
Yeah, but okay, but here's the thing though.
that you're,
And
but
it's a
in
good
our
question.
professional lives?
No, but see, this is my point though. I think that black people are constantly negotiating what's appropriate and what's not.
Yep.
Like, I don't think that other people groups, generally speaking, in a place where the dominant culture is white, I don't believe that they generally think about it. I don't.
Absolutely not. But even if you think about it, let's go way back to
Okay.
our birth.
All right.
Thinking about your name,
Yeah.
even in that, our parents thought, well, if I give them a name that sounds too Jamaican or
Right.
too black or too
Yep.
whatever.
So this is, you raise a good point, and I remember in the last church I pastored, there was a conversation
Phenomenal.
that was there, okay? And I was speaking to this young man. I won't use his name because he didn't give me permission, but I'll tell the story. He was looking for a job from another country, from a different island, and he has a lot of qualifications to do a lot of different things. He put out his resume using his name, whatever it was, first name, middle name, last name. No hits. For weeks, 1 or 2 hits. Then he changed his resume, used his middle name, which is more European, and all of a sudden he had like this pick of literally lots of different places that
Absolutely.
were looking
There
for
are
him.
studies about this.
Yep.
This is happening everywhere. You take 2 qualified people with the same qualifications and their names are different, and the more black sounding name gets less hits than the white sounding names.
Now, can we just say this? For those of you that are watching this, we want you to engage this conversation,
Yes.
right? We might be absolutely right, or we
may
might
be
be
wrong.
absolutely wrong, but we'd love to hear what your comments are because
Absolutely.
Yeah.
maybe we're off.
And we're just telling you our experiences because
Yeah.
I also did that with my resume. To be honest, I did my first name is Deandra, my middle name is Olivia, and I did the D. Olivia, and then I put my last name at the time being Dodd, right? Thinking that would attract more people because I know Deandra isn't so common, and even if you search Deandra, you're not gonna see the white face. You may see more blacks
No, it's
than white.
definitely Jamaica.
So,
Definitely.
putting the Olivia there, I wanted to see if it would entice people. And it did. I even created a new email with Olivia because my initial email was Deandra Dodd at, whatever, and y'all don't need to know. But I changed it using the Olivia, and I got more attention. And I thought to myself, wow, because if I was living in Jamaica, I would have been perfectly fine. But I'm now in a different place where I now have to think differently and switch my mind to ensure that I do excel as
Yeah.
a black person.
And we've never read the book. I think that's the point. None of us have ever picked up the book and said, I want to do well in Canada, and so therefore, let me read something up on code switching. It's just a way of life. I'd like to also maybe share an experience, because we did start off with education, right,
Yeah.
Miss G? And here's the thing, Miss G.
I know.
Here's the thing. Not too long ago, at the end of the year, of course, because of COVID, all of the kids are home. So our kids
Yeah.
are at home. At the end of the school year, they were going to have like a tea party type thing outside in the sun.
That's nice.
And it was on Zoom so that they'd be able to be with their teachers and their classrooms. Amazing. Now, Shauna knows
Miss
my
G.
kids.
Miss
G,
G.
sorry. She
Miss
knows
G. Come on.
our kids,
Yes.
okay?
I do.
Now, here's the reality.
Love them.
Our kids love gospel, rap, gospel, contemporary music, and that's all they play. Well, because this thing is now on Zoom and perhaps the culture of the school, and I'm not knocking the school, we're just talking about code switching, is as such that you would never go to the school perhaps and hear that kind of music. When they were setting up with their picnic stuff and their drinks and everybody's supposed to have their music, I said to them, put your music on.
Yeah.
Now, both of them responded at the exact same time, and they looked at each other and looked at me, and they're like, Dad, we're not going to play that. I'm like, well, why not?
Yeah.
They're like, that music is not for our school.
And think about this. And the kids are 7 and
Yeah, 8 and 10,
8
they'll
and
be.
10, there
they'll
we
be
go. Yeah,
Eric
and-
is out to lunch for right now.
I knew when you told the story, I knew you were talking about the girls. I knew, you said tea parties.
Yeah.
I knew Eric wasn't involved. But just think about this, that they are 8 and 10. And they already know.
They already know. We've
They
never
already
had
know.
that conversation at home.
And I think that's why when we talk about code switching, it's in us. I think without knowing it, without having the conversation, you already know. You know how you have to act.
Yep.
You know when to turn it on, when to turn it off. You already know.
And I think it's definitely something that our kids see. They see it in us, and we don't even realize that we're doing it sometimes. And then when we see it reflected in our kids, we see them doing stuff. We're like, wait, is that what I've been showing you? Or how did you pick this up? Where did you learn this? Because
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm doing it.
Yeah, and the reality is, and maybe for some that will watch this, there may be a little bit of a level of uncomfortability. But when we talk about white privilege, it's not just in the context of the KKK. It's not always that.
Yeah.
It's not always hate crime. But what it does say to us as we're kind of like talking about this is how pervasive systemic racism
Yep.
is.
So
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand that piece. I think you can't talk about code switching without talking about the system.
Right.
And so conversations I've been having with people is, we can talk about police brutality till the sun comes up.
Yeah.
Listen.
That is not the only issue.
Yep.
It's the system. So even if no police were killing black people, let's say they all did their job and everything was perfect, the system is still broken.
Yep.
The system is the problem. Because if we grew up in a place where it's in us like that, that's a system problem.
Well, here's the thing, though. I want to add this to our conversation. This code switching is so dominant that even when perhaps white people are not in the room, it still is in the room. Let me give you an example.
We talked about
Let me
this
give you an
earlier.
example. Let me give you an example.
We come in with
So
ours, too.
years ago, I pastored at a church that is more of a European type of style. When I would be preparing my sermons, there would be times where very easily to me, there was an analogy that I could have used that was definitely my culture. My parents are Jamaican, I'm Canadian. And so there are things that happen in our home that my parents bring, but then there are also some experiences that I have as a Canadian. While pastoring there are a lot of little catchphrases, like things like rain or fall, but dirty tough. And now I have to even explain it. Sometimes the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. I would never say rain or fall, but dirty tough in that setting. I would always say sometimes the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. However, when I would go to more Caribbean churches, where I knew that out there they would understand it, I would use rain or fall, but dirty tough, and I wouldn't always clarify.
Because
We
you
get
knew
it. We
people
knew
would
it.
get
Yeah.
Now the challenge with that is that when we talk about code switching, even amongst ourselves, because of code switching, there's this dichotomy and at times this polarism that happens with other black people amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Facts.
Right? So if you go into a Caribbean church, perhaps, where there may be more Jamaicans there, you say that,
on.
there's a roar.
Yeah,
Because the
yeah, yeah.
Jamaican thing is strong.
We're
Love
with
a
you.
good-
But
we
if
love
you
it.
go to another congregation where perhaps the Jamaicans may not be dominant there, but maybe it's Trinidadian
Yeah.
or Bajan
Yeah.
or St. Lucian, and I'm sure I'm going to lose some of the island, and I'm still going to be in trouble, but you get the point. The
Yes.
point is then that when that saying is there, you can also see the awkwardness of why are they using their vernacular? What about us?
Absolutely. I think because of the system,
Yeah.
the divide even within us, maybe not us, but the divide within our culture, our background, our roots is real. So earlier we were talking,
Yeah.
and we talked about the idea of don't sound too white. And this idea of even my friends sometimes
Yeah.
used to be like, why are you talking like a white
Right.
person?
Because you speak properly.
What?
Because you speak properly.
And really you're transitioning into microaggression, which we often tag to maybe black and white.
Yeah.
But there is microaggression that we
Say
also
that again.
experience
Yeah.
within the culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Somebody talks too white, somebody's ghetto. We
Right.
have that issue. I mean, for me and Akeem, Akeem is Guyanese.
Yeah,
like,
one of these days
Guyanese
we're going to show him on the other
Yes.
side of the camera.
Guyanese Canadian, and I am Jamaican
Yeah.
Canadian. But sometimes when Akeem says some things, I'm like, no, you're not even Jamaican. Like, why would you or don't? Like, I'm like, you're
Why
not on
you
my
gotta do
level
That's right.
because you're not
Akeem,
Jamaican.
guess what? 1 month into marriage, you're not even on your wife.
But you know
level.
what?
Why you gotta do
he's
it like
half.
that?
He's half Jamaican, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't count.
Yeah.
You have to be full.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
yeah.
this
Something
makes
like
me
that.
wonder,
Yeah.
do we feel like there's a superiority even in our own blackness?
So you know what, Shauna? I didn't think you were going to lead us to that
so.
well, but we might as well since we're here.
Yeah.
Because
or,
now
or
we're...
in our own Jamaicanness.
Oh, definitely.
Well,
Because
see, this is where this whole conversation around small island,
Yep.
large island.
But we look at Awitalawa.
And not only that, there are some
Everybody
that
knows.
are very Caribbean in terms of culture.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you, we're not from the islands, we're South American.
Oh, yes,
That's true,
Some of those
right?
Guyanese people
Yes,
do not claim
yes.
the Caribbean.
They don't.
There used to be a little old lady at church I'll
Yeah.
never forget.
Yeah.
And she said, "We are from South America."
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, we get it.
geographically.
but-
Yeah.
So
And this is the point, though. This code switching, it is a matter of here to here. And once we see what here looks like, when here is no longer in the room,
Yeah.
we also have a tendency of creating the here
Yeah.
amongst us.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And that's why at times, as a people, and let me just say this because I think the technical term, I was talking to a friend of mine and she introduced me to a new term, lateral violence. Lateral violence, lateral violence, right? The idea that even if others are not in the room, we now are fighting with one
Against
another
each other.
because this systemic racism, in principle, it still lingers.
Yeah.
Right? So even the idea of speaking properly, right?
Yeah.
And of course, my parents are from Jamaica. I've said that without apology. I think it's a strong culture. I have no apologies to make around it. But even if you go there on the island, when you go into the classroom, the
Yeah.
teachers are going to tell you, right? Speak properly.
Yep.
Well, what is properly? Because not everybody in Canada speaks well, and yet you
That's true.
generally, unless you're, editing an essay, you wouldn't say so-and-so is not speaking well. You would just give it a pass.
Yeah, yeah.
I also remember when I was in college south of the border, I had a professor. He was profound, like really smart, but he had an accent. And for some of the American students,
It was hard.
they didn't give him a chance to just sometimes when you don't understand somebody, if you just maybe close your eyes
Listen
or
keenly.
listen a little bit more carefully, you'll understand what they're saying because it's just a little bit of a different dialect, but he was speaking in English.
Yeah.
Now, I heard some of the students, and they were like, and of course, remember, I'm Canadian, so I'm accustomed to all the different dialects and having to kind of strain your way through.
diverse.
They were like, you know what? We don't want him as the professor because we can't understand him. And in my mind and in my heart, I felt extremely disappointed.
Absolutely.
Because within myself, I said, why would we want to tear down one of our own just because he doesn't sound like us?
But isn't that why most of us code switch anyways? Because of part of the reason could be the fear of losing a job or getting kicked out or not being accepted or appreciated. So if I know that I have the qualifications, I have all the degrees and everything, but I'm not speaking the way they want to hear me sound, then I may lose out.
Yeah, but here, let's now come to the other side of this conversation. Code switching happens in the reverse, but not generally in an academic setting. So, for example, we have a lot of tourists that go to the Caribbean.
Yes.
When they arrive, many of them say, yeah, man,
Yes.
All the time.
right?
Or they leave and they're like, oh, where'd you go? Jamaica.
Yeah,
Say
man.
something. What did you learn? Yeah, man.
Right.
Everything.
And so code switching, and it's funny, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it shows what happens when we are the dominant place in that moment. So in Jamaica, it's predominantly black.
Yes.
And we might be doing code switching in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
but when the tourist comes as a means of endearment, they code switch to us.
Yes.
So is it a means of endearment or is it a microaggression?
It-
Because
yeah.
one of the things I realized over the last, really in reflecting and thinking is how many times have I committed a microaggression? Because we can do it.
Yeah.
And how many things have happened to me that are microaggressions? And so now that we're having this conversation, is it endearing or is it a microaggression?
You know what? I don't know.
I
Me
don't
neither,
either.
that's
That's a hard question. And
Let
maybe
us know. Let us know what you
Yeah,
think, because
but
I really don't
Somebody
know.
Give us the answer. 'Cause
Because I have to give some people the benefit of the doubt. I think that there are some who are legitimately ignorant on the subject matter. They don't
I think the majority of
realize that they are code switching. Because privilege is as such that wherever you go, you're not reading the room. I was watching a video not too long ago, and there was, one of the speakers, they were talking about anti-black racism and whatever, and some of the challenges that we have as black people when we enter the room. And here's the reality. We walk into the room, we're reading the room,
Yes.
right?
Automatically.
We look, if there's maybe one other black person in the room, we might have a tendency to go and sit down because now there's two of us versus being drowned out by everybody else in the room. I just don't know that everyone is as acutely aware of it as we are. Go ahead.
Sorry,
please.
I just have a question. I'm thinking about it, and I'm wondering, is code switching just in our verbiage, or maybe is there a different term for our body language and our
Everything.
expression?
I'm sure there might be a term, but I think it's everything.
Do you know the term?
Yes, if you do, drop it in the
Yeah,
comment
Team almost
section.
answered. No, we're just talking to the camera.
Akeem, is
Sorry.
this how they do you all the time? Is this how it is? Oh, man.
Yes, I
Yeah,
really
it's
want
not
to know.
just verbiage. It's almost like even when we go to church, right? We're church people. When we go to church, we've even been programmed as to what is appropriate
Yep.
dress for church, right? And so we are African descent. However, most times we wouldn't necessarily see the traditional African garb
Yes.
as being dressy. It might be something we would do at a wedding, maybe if it's for Black History Month,
Yeah.
especially during the African Emphasis Saturday, we would put it on. But generally speaking, when we come, suit, tie, dress, big hat tilted, and the better you look is the more pian you are, is the more bougie you are in that moment, right? Because when people are really dressed up, you can see there's a sense of pride. Yeah.
But that goes back to the system.
Yeah.
So we often look at racism and we talk about the American contents, but if we go back in our history, it's colonialism.
Yes.
So we can forget about America for a moment because we come from, or our backgrounds are Caribbean.
Yes.
So America has nothing to do with our stories.
Mm-hmm.
Our stories come from the British. And if you think about what British people are, let me sit up properly.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, sit up.
We should have all been sitting
No,
up
let
over.
me sit up too.
And I mean, this is also just good for your posture.
Yeah, whatever it's good
But-
for. We're all sitting up now.
The British way of life has taught us that this
Yeah.
pinkies up.
No, that's
that-
only if you're drinking a cold beverage.
Yeah,
I thought it was a hot
Hot
beverage.
beverage, hot tea.
Well, sometimes
we
the
don't
power
know.
went
You
out at
tell
my
us
house,
that
so
too.
the beverage is
But
cold.
they've taught us that those things are
Yeah.
what is proper.
Yeah.
Wear your hat to church, proper. Wear a suit and tie, proper. And I find, and this is something I know we've talked about, is we are holding on to that traditional, I say traditional Caribbean, but where did the Caribbean get it from?
Yep.
The colonialism.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting, now that you've gone there with it as well, it's even our reluctancy to even eat with our hands. Like, you know, one of the things that makes me smile, and of course, my parents are Jamaican, but I have come to love the roti. Okay?
Yes. The roti.
If I go, the roti, see, I gave it the article that makes it the subject of the sentence. All right, sorry.
We're getting a grammar lesson.
Yeah, there it is, the article.
All right.
All right. So here's the thing. When I first saw someone eat the roti
Yes.
from Trinidad,
Yes.
it's this big hand thing, you know, and they know how to pick it up, and as juicy as it may be, it's a hand kind of food. But then I also remember the first time I saw like a non-Trinidadian eating the roti
Oh yeah.
With a knife.
with a knife and fork.
Because you have to cut it. by
And here's the
size.
thing. My default wasn't to eat it with my hand. It was to eat it with the knife and fork.
Yes.
Because here's the reality. By eating it with the knife and fork, it became more civilized.
And so I think we do that. We do that in so many ways. We do it in our churches. It's why, and ooh, forgive me, but it's why we want to always sing the hymns.
So why'd you have to look at me?
Because you're a
I
pastor.
know.
So,
And
you
then
know.
she.
Okay, fine, I'm a pastor. So apparently I sing hymns because I'm a
I mean,
pastor.
no, but think about churches.
Oh, my
How many, and I mean,
Yeah.
how many churches, and fine, the words, I understand the words are theoretically correct and maybe
Yeah,
biblically
theologically correct and all that
But,
stuff. Yeah.
oh, thank you.
Yeah,
'cause
no problem.
I don't know
I'm
those
right
big
there with
words.
you,
I don't know
sir.
those big words. Yeah.
Thank you.
But think about that. It's only recently that
Yeah.
we've kind of started shifting towards gospel in our services, in our more regular songs. And even then, there's still this.
You're going to get me in
Tug.
trouble, but since
Hey,
we're all
you know
in,
I like trouble.
we might as well go all the way
She
in
said I
because
like
here
trouble.
we're still talking about code switching, right? And in some places we don't permit the drums or the bass guitar or
Ooh,
the
people are gonna
praise
get
and worship
angry.
type of song that has a little bit of a movement. And it's funny
A
because
bounce.
every time we do something that I think inches us closer to our African roots, where drums and percussion are important, there's always a research done. No, there's always this research. Like, we
That
need
just
to
came up
see
out of the blue.
whether or not this thing is okay or not, and whether or not it's demonic. And the reality is, I find, and we're still talking about code switching, that whatever is black is often under scrutiny, under the
Yes.
microphone.
Yes.
Like, we don't necessarily get the pass. Like, the assumption of, no, it's okay, it's just different, it's okay. There's always some kind of research because we have to make sure. But when other people groups do certain things, I just find we give them the benefit of the doubt first, and then we'll walk it back after. But we're always under the microscope, and that's a tough
Yes.
place to be.
And it's true because I feel like outside of the church aspect, it happens in everything else in life with us being under the microscope. Like, everything we do, if we take 2 steps forward when we weren't supposed to, it's like, why did you do that?
Right.
Research shows, or you shouldn't have done that until you're this age or that age.
Yeah.
And I saw a picture
Okay.
on
we supposed to-
Instagram,
I
and
feel like we're on the
I
same
think
side.
it,
I feel
I
like
think
we're on
you
the same
posted it
side.
on your page,
Okay,
you know,
let's go.
and it was about relating. A black child did something and a white child did
Get
the
out
exact
of
same
my
thing. It's the hairstyles. So y'all can tell I like this chair. Yes.
Throw my hair backwards
So
too.
maybe 5, 6-year-old girls, that's their age ranges, and they had two similar hairstyles. One's a black girl, one's a white girl. And when the picture is shown, the different captions from people or comments was, "That's too grown for a black child." But then the white child, it was like, "That looks good." Like, wow, so nice.
How cute is
Absolutely.
that?
How
Yes.
cute is that? There is this over-sexualizing of our young black children happening. So that same picture, I think there was a series of pictures.
Yes.
The hairstyle, a cute, there's one and the girl's wearing like a little biker jacket. And she's like, and they're like, oh no, she's too grown. That's
Yep.
too grown to look.
Force ripe. as they
Force
call it.
ripe. And
Sorry, can you be force ripe? What does it mean, please?
Oh, force ripe. It's a term that is used mostly by my parents, the
Jamaicans.
Jamaicans.
Yeah,
And force ripe just basically means that you're
Not being age appropriate.
yes, you're grown. You're jumping ahead of
Yeah,
your time. You need
right.
to take it slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yet we don't put that, I mean, my parents will put that on anybody, but we don't generally put that on white children
Yeah.
or Asian children or any other child but black children.
Yep.
And so, and sometimes that's not even coming from the white perspective. That's not, what did you call it? Unilateral?
Lateral.
That's us.
Lateral
what?
violence.
Lateral violence,
That
yes.
is us doing it.
Yeah.
Force ripe is a Jamaican term
Yeah.
that our parents have said many, many, many times.
And then
Yeah.
imagine hearing that from at the age of 5, right? So these things are instilled in your head, and then you're getting older, and you don't want to do things, but your friends who are the same age as you, who may be white, or people in your school are doing the same things, but you're like, I can't because someone's gonna say I'm force ripe, or someone's gonna judge me, or talk about me because I'm under the microscope.
Well, here's
All
the
the time.
impact of all of this, if I might say so, is that it follows you through life,
Yes.
through your career. So again, who I am on the weekend is not who I am on
Monday to
Monday
Friday.
morning in the office.
Yes.
The music I listen
100%.
to on the weekend
Yeah.
may not be who I am in the office from Monday to Friday unless my manager or my supervisor or the VP has now given me the green light to be more of myself. So the challenge then is, because I may be out on the weekend with my friends who may work with me in the office, they begin to resent me because on Monday morning when we all go to our job,
Yeah.
especially if I've got to a different level of leadership in the organization, I now have code switched
Yep.
to being prim and proper,
Yeah.
and they now need to follow along with
Yeah.
me. Like, I can't tell you how many times in my old job, because, you know, I'm a free spirit,
Yes.
and it takes a lot for people to, like, break me out of who I am. Good or bad, doesn't matter. I remember when I was in the office setting and I would be myself, there would be times where black people would come and say to me, hey, Andre, you know, you can't do that
Yes.
here.
Yes.
And I'd say, well, why not? What did I say? Was it inappropriate? No, it's not inappropriate, but you know, there's office etiquette versus street etiquette. And
You know.
I just said to myself, this is crazy. Because again, in this code switch, no one really gets to know who you are.
Yep.
In this code switch, it alienates people, not just white to black, but even black to black.
Yep.
So that now you become the quote unquote, the Uncle Tom, if you decide to speak in a certain way or carry yourself in a certain way. And long term, after a while, you lose yourself.
Yep. I mean, one of my biggest fears with my work, and I think I've carried this on for at least 6 years, is just the fact that I don't want to be seen as the angry black woman.
All the
Angry.
time.
I feel like I can't
I'm gonna
even
back
get
out
a
of this
little bit
conversation right now.
upset in certain settings because the minute I want to speak up or speak out, it's like
What's wrong
just
with her?
another black woman, just angry.
Or let's hurry up and let's calm her down
Because we
before
don't
she
know.
explodes.
Right.
And I feel like it's now a thing where I have to tame myself.
Yeah.
But everyone else in the room can probably get to speak up and speak out.
You know what? You just made a good pivot in this conversation. I just need to just say that. It's a good pivot.
And I mean, at some point, I think it becomes personal. And so for me, I've had that moment where, you know what? I don't care anymore. Here I go. And so in given recent events, we did have, at my school, there was no conversation. So things happened, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, she's unionized. She can talk as much as she wants to. Go ahead.
Well, must be nice.
And I remember going, we had a staff meeting. So I'm going to tell a real story. We had a staff meeting. And in the staff meeting, nothing is mentioned about anti-black racism.
Zero.
Zero.
Even though we're all
So-
protesting the news, internet,
Right.
zero.
So
All right.
George Floyd has been murdered. We had this conversation, and I remember I'm just like, and I'm sitting there going like this. I'm sitting there
waiting.
watching like, okay.
Yeah.
And if you know
Dave-
Shauna, she is leaning
No,
just
no, no.
like
Miss
that. That's not a
G.
metaphor.
Miss G
Sorry,
is
Miss
over
G.
here
Miss G.
I
But
love the
like,
mystery.
I'm watching this meeting happening, and nothing is being said. My principal says, before we go, if anyone is using racialized language in your class, please let me know.
That's
What does that mean?
No, but that was it.
That was it.
I know, that
the
was
No,
conversation.
that's what you were looking for. That was it.
No,
I'm
no,
saying
that was the conversation. So this was Thursday. So our staff meetings were on Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, you can't fire me. So I'm all the way in.
Must be nice.
So that was Thursday. Thursday night now, we get an email. Tomorrow we're going to be having an emergency division meeting. What? Why? Now, at this point, I didn't think anything of it. I just, okay. Still noticing we haven't actually mentioned anything. In the staff meeting, we talk about, one of my coworkers says, oh, well, you know, in Miss Griffith's class, we had a really good conversation about anti-black racism. Previously that day, I had to teach. And you know, there's been posts about how hard is it to go to work as black people right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And I remember I showed up to class that day, and we do this round robin. We ask everyone how they're doing. And I just burst into tears. And I just couldn't be like,
Yeah.
and if you know me, I'm
she's angry and emotional.
exactly. But if you know me generally, I'm very energetic.
Yeah.
I'm bubbly.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
my kids are ready for me. And that day, I just couldn't. So one of my friends came to class. She's like our support teacher, so
Yeah.
she comes to class sometimes. She came to class, and we started that conversation. She said, "Do you guys understand why Miss Griffith is crying?" So we have a whole conversation. So back to the meeting on Thursday. My friend now speaks up about this.
Yeah.
So here we are. She's opened the door. Nothing is
They
said.
close it right back.
Anyways, I'm gonna speed this up. So we get to Friday now. Friday now, I get this email with the agenda. Oh, we're going to be discussing anti-black racism and what we can do. And
Okay.
but we don't have it as a full staff meeting. We split up. So in education, you have divisions.
Okay.
So you have primary, And kindergarten to so primary is kindergarten to grade 3, and then junior and intermediate 4 to 8. So we have this meeting now to separately discuss anti-black racism. Let me tell you how I laid into these people. Because I couldn't believe that we were having this conversation on Friday.
You got a little
We
angry.
just had a staff meeting. I was a lot angry. I was a lot.
You heard she said she laid into
I
them.
I laid in. So
She was no longer sitting like
no,
this.
I was
She
like
was-
this. I was in the stand because
Miss G.
I see this agenda and I'm like, and I remember before the meeting I called the chair and I said, I'm not coming to your meeting because this is stupid. And so in the meeting I didn't go, and then I said, okay, let me go, because if I didn't go, no one would say anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I lay into them and I said, 1, George Floyd was murdered 12 days ago. 7 days ago, the Toronto District School Board sent out an email to address it.
Yeah.
You said nothing.
Yeah.
We had a staff meeting on Thursday.
Yeah.
Nothing was said.
Nothing was said.
Yeah.
So now on Friday you want to address it? I am angry.
Yeah.
I told them, I said, I am straight up angry. And I didn't care about being the angry black woman because
Well, hold on a second, Shauna. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to say this. See, my love, and I hear you, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but because we're having the conversation in front, anger is a legitimate emotion
it is.
that
Yes.
black people just don't seem to have access to.
Yes.
You know, like when I went to
Say
Jamaica
that
for the
again.
very first time, and again, that's my experience.
Yeah.
Maybe others can relate to it, and we'd love for them to share it in the comment section.
comment.
But here's the thing. A lot of the conversations that I observed as a Canadian going there for the very first time, they were loud, they were
Yes.
aggressive. People would turn their back and walk away and engage, and they would do that for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. But I never got the sense that somebody was gonna shoot up the place,
Yeah.
or they were so angry that they were gonna quit on Monday morning. It's just that as a culture, there are different ways that we express ourselves. Because on
Yes.
the other side, and I have to say this out loud, not all conversations in the Caribbean are loud. We have very quiet
Yes, we do.
people who are measured.
Absolutely.
However, every single time the volume goes up, somebody's gonna say,
problem.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yes.
whoa, whoa,
Yep.
whoa,
Somebody
whoa. Can you
trembles.
please bring this down a
Yeah,
second?
yeah.
I'm not, this is not a fight. No. Why are you telling me
Yeah.
that
I
it's
know what
a
it is.
fight? It's not a
Right.
fight. I'm not angry.
Yeah.
I'm not upset. What I'm doing is I want you to understand
My frustration.
in my cultural context how upset I am, because in other cultures they may not raise their voice, but the eyebrow goes up
Yep,
or
yep,
the face gets pursed in. Now here's the
True.
dilemma, Shauna, especially since some of this conversation is even around policing.
Yeah.
You get pulled over,
Yeah.
and yet again, because you've got a black vehicle with rims and a dark tint, even though it may be the legal tint, somebody's pulling you over again.
Yep.
The moment you now raise your voice and say, okay, officer, you pulled me over last week, I recognize you, all of a sudden get out of the car.
Yep.
Now that you're out of the car, somebody's now slapping a handcuff on your wrist, right?
What?
Really, really tight, because you can hear the thing. It's almost like the camera always captures the
Yeah,
sound
yeah.
of the clicking of the handcuff.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden, if you want to live, you have to become docile.
Yep.
But I've watched
speak.
many different videos recently on Instagram, on Facebook. There was this one guy, white guy, he was running around with a knife after the police officer.
I saw that one.
Running in between the vehicle, like charging. That police officer never actually reached for his gun.
Never,
Wow.
never.
I didn't see that
Taser,
video.
yes, but the gun, no. So even when we talk about code switching, even in a situation where we engage the police,
Yeah.
we have to approach it in a certain
Differently.
kind of way. Because if
Differently.
our voice gets loud,
Yeah. Yeah.
first
Then
and
we're getting
foremost,
aggressive.
sometimes the hand is
they're
already
coming
on the
already.
gun before the window goes
Just from
down.
seeing us.
Look, here's the thing. We're just simply saying today for code switching, we're beginning a conversation here.
Yeah.
What we're saying to you, and we want to hear from you, is look, this code switching is not just language.
No.
It's life.
So much
It's
more.
the fact that you can't bring your favorite food to
Yep.
school to eat
Yeah.
because somebody's going to say that smells.
What is that? Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
that?
I guess my question to everyone also
Yeah.
is code switching bad? Is it a bad thing?
It has its place. I don't know.
Talk about it.
I don't know. I mean, this is a bigger conversation.
I feel like it's a bigger
I think it's
conversation.
amazing. I
It has its
recognize that I code switch, and I love that I code switch because I feel like if I don't switch to the patois, I'm losing my culture,
Right.
my heritage.
Right.
And if I go around my family not code switching, I just feel like we are just saying
Yeah.
the Jamaican line, the patois ends here. I don't
Yeah.
want it to end. I love who I am.
Yeah. So guess
And
what?
I
This
think
is
it's good.
TMI. What does it stand for again?
Thought provoking.
Thought provoking.
Motivation.
Motivational.
Inspirational.
Inspiration. You got to join us this time. Say it
Okay,
again.
I'm
say it
ready.
again.
I'm ready.
Thought provoking.
Thought-provoking.
Motivational.
Motivational.
Inspirational.
Inspirational.
TMI.
TMI.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
Thanks
thanks
for
for
watching.
joining us.
Like,
Oh, man.
share,
Miss G.
comment.
This is Miss G.
Thanks for
I hope you
coming,
come
Miss
back
G.
again.
I will come back.
Yeah,
You
because we
love
want to
it.
hear. But
Y'all
from
love
now
it.
until the next time, try not to lay into.
Lay
No,
it.
it's summer holidays. I'm not letting anybody. We're off on vacation.
All right, take care. Peace.
Take
Bye.
care.
Yeah.